Is it really okay to put your marriage above your children? I know it might be controversial, but having a strong marriage is one of the greatest gifts that you can actually give your children.
In today's video, we're going to explore why putting your marriage first isn't about neglecting your kids. It's about creating a stronger foundation for the entire family.
So today we're talking about having a strong marriage, and does that compete with your kids, or does that, like you putting your marriage ahead of them, is that good for them, or does it actually hurt them?
So creating a foundation where the marriage is strong, it's kind of like what I said earlier, it creates a whole entire foundation for the whole family.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially with the kids, and seeing a very strong marriage, it helps them for an example for their own marriages,
Right.
and even relationships.
Yeah. So as we talk about this, and as we talk about putting marriage first, I think it brings up a lot of questions for people, well-meaning parents who want the best for their kids.
Okay.
But they think like, okay, if I put my marriage first, then it's taking away from the kids. But then if I'm investing everything in the kids, then my marriage suffers.
Yep.
So it's like, what is that balance, and what is the right thing to do?
So I know that we've talked about this before, and I've kind of said, wham, you're on the door. So I joke about this a lot. I have, from the moment they were little, I have joked about only X amount of years before they're gone, And the thing is, in all honesty, you came first.
Yeah.
And so guess what? They're going to, we're teaching them to leave, to be independent, to go out into the world. And so what does that mean? It means you and I are alone.
Yeah.
And guess what? I know that this needs to be really, really good, because I don't want to get to the end of the kids being gone and then we don't know each other, or we haven't experienced a good strong foundation in our marriage.
So true. And I think one of the things that is so good is when you create that strong marriage and you work on that strong marriage, it actually brings a stability to your home.
Yeah.
Where your kids they come home and they don't question, is our mom and dad okay? They don't question what it's going to be like when they go home. So actually, when you're working on your marriage, you're actually helping them too.
So I mean, with you saying that, like, they're seeing us first off interact with each other. They're seeing how we respond, and so what it's doing, it's also subliminal messages, I guess, to them. To where they're like, oh, I know how to respond to my spouse or in my relationships, and I know how they're going to treat me, or how they should treat me. And so it really is giving them a set foundation of not only how they're going to treat their spouse in their relationship, but it's also teaching them what not to receive if it's not if it's outside of the alignment.
Sure.
So
well, and like you're saying, like we are being role models, hopefully for them, in how to invest in relationships and how to put your marriage first. And I think that's just like the first point. Like, so many parents are worried because if I take this time away, if we take a date night, or we take time just for ourselves, are we taking away from our kids? And I think it relieves people to say, like, actually it's a gift to them.
Yeah.
So
in the beginning, especially with being new parents, we would take our daughter sometimes with us and just put her in the little seat there.
She didn't do a lot. Cried. She just wanted to eat.
And then there was a point where it was you had more comfort in leaving her. And so, but you definitely went ahead and made the steps Like you created the ability to be able to do that. And so it didn't take away from us being able to go on a date night. And
Right.
so, we may not have brought her to a movie or, something like that, but we worked around that.
Yeah,
So,
and I guess that's a really good point, is it looks like different things at different times.
at different seasons.
So,
Yeah. So oftentimes there's a misconception about putting marriage first in a relationship.
Yeah,
In a
people
family.
think that it takes away from kids.
Yeah, that it robs from their children's experience.
Right.
So,
And that is, I think, so important to address that, like putting marriage first, it's not a competition between the kids or the marriage relationship. Because then somebody does lose. Which is funny though, because I
kids
think
are always going to lose. I'm just letting you know.
yes, and we joke about that, that the kids are going to lose, or that Chris is excited for the day that
I joke about
they
it,
move
but-
out. But it just is like, we have to invest in one another, and we have to invest in that relationship because it is so important. And like just how life goes, kids do move out. Like that's the goal, is that you raise them and they do move out.
That's going to be a hard day.
It's
going to be hard.
It is going to be hard. But at the same time, like, because we've put our marriage first and because we've invested that time, the hope is then it'll just be the next stage.
Yeah.
But we know each other and we're still friends. And, we're different people than we were almost 20 years ago.
Well, I would hope.
Right.
I would hope we are. Yeah, I hope we've grown a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
but if we hadn't put our marriage first for this
Yeah.
whole time, we wouldn't know those people.
So even with that being said, so if we were child focused, then what would happen in a marriage? Would there be like pitfalls that you would fall into?
Yeah.
And so another way to avoid those pitfalls of being child focused. I just want to say I love my children very much, but I also would love my children to go out and experience a strong, healthy relationship. That is, we talk about a lot of being intentional, and that is what we want to see. Not only that, we also know that it's going to bring us grandchildren. So we need them to go. It cannot be in my home any more than they need to be.
Well, and that, like, I think oftentimes parents fall into, you love your children so much, and just like we do, but everything you do becomes about them. And so that that actually does them a disservice.
It's a disservice, yeah.
Because they, number one, think life is all about them, and they never learn. They never learn the patience and waiting, and that they don't always get what they want. And so that's another benefit of putting the marriage first, because kids get to learn those skills.
I've always said that the world does not revolve around them.
Yes.
I even said it to them. I'm like, you do realize that the world does not revolve around you, right? And so, anyways, so something I came to mind.
But it is, that is good, because we didn't want it shouldn't be, our lives shouldn't be centered on just anyone.
True, that's true.
But as a family, everyone has seen a family that so focuses on the child or children. And oftentimes the parents' relationship suffers from
that. Yeah, absolutely.
So we've talked a little bit about there being different seasons of life.
Yeah.
So what are some of those practical ways that you can put your marriage first in those different seasons?
Well, for one, creating some time for just us. We kind of talked a little bit earlier about dating. Going on a date, that kind of thing. Our children are now a little older. So we've done this recently where we've just said pizza night, and they're excited because they get pizza and they get to hang out at the house and they don't have us bothering them, and then we take off.
Yeah.
And we go do whatever we want to do. And sometimes that includes going to the grocery store. I'm just saying.
Definitely it does.
but it's creating time for us to not have them always with us.
Right.
I
Right.
love them, but I want to be with you.
Yes.
So
well, and I think that's a theme of our life is being intentional, and which is why we even named this Crown Intent, because we believe in being intentional, and now more than ever we have to be intentional. So like when the kids were really little, we have parents around, but we would, you might have a babysitter or a close friend or whatever that is, whatever that looks like for childcare, but schedule that time where you can be together. But now it does look different because we have 3 teenagers and they're very busy. And so dates sometimes are the grocery store.
They are, really, truly. Other times, of course, we make it a point to go out and go do something that has nothing to do with the grocery store, because that's not a date for me. So
we've learned how to make it a date.
We still have fun.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I mean, sometimes, if on a really busy week, we have to go run an errand, and so the 2 of us just drive together and make sure that we're talking, we're not distracted in those moments, because we have to intentionally invest in our relationship.
So another thing is how setting boundaries and creating routines.
Yeah.
That would be another way of creating that atmosphere.
That space
for being intentional.
Yeah. Can you kind of think of any of the routines that we set, like when the kids were little, or what we do now, or?
So no, I can't think of any.
I'm the routines person, the structure person, the plan person, the routines person. He can't remember any routine we have. Just kidding. Okay, you want me to help?
Yeah, I need you to help on this one. Because
well,
I am go ahead.
For one, bedtime.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
So we always had a specific bedtime for kids.
For the kids, yeah.
And that allowed for, that time that we didn't have someone that like needed us, and then we could spend time together. That was a huge one when the kids were little.
So now that the kids are not little, well, I guess let's go into the middle section there. When they were a little younger, and is there a routine? I mean, once they started getting a little bit more independent and a little older, before the teenage years, we literally would say, here's your daily or your routine for, especially like nighttime, or your routine when you came home from school. Now, especially at night, because we spend time together at night, it was go do your things, and it was the expectation was set that they would go do those things and be ready for bed, and then we would do our family time before bed, the routine that we would have, and then they would go to sleep, and then we would have our own personal time to talk, whatever.
Right.
So
right. But another thing we did was I think right now in the season that we're in is we have kids that go to different sporting events, and sometimes that's on the same night. And so Chris and I rarely go separately to those events. So we just look at our week and we say, this kid has basketball, this kid has swim on the same night, or they have track meets in different places. But what we do know is Chris and I are going to one place. Yep. And we don't split very often. Occasionally.
That's what I was going to say. It's very rare if we have. I've always said this from the very beginning. I've always said that as a family, we're going to go and support each person in the family. So initially, when she was coaching, we would go and watch her coach basketball. And I mean, from the moment they were in the car seats, all the way till coaching stopped in our season of life. And so we would go and watch. The same on the other side of that. Shelby and the kids would come and watch. If it was an event I was doing or something I was racing in, they would be there to watch and support. And then as the kids started doing their own sports, we implemented that same rule over each one of the kids. So again, like she's saying, we also have a limit or a routine where we wouldn't allow the kids to do multiple sports at the same time as everyone else, so that we were able to go
as a family,
and support that individual that was doing something. Go ahead.
And well, now they overlap a little bit more.
Yes, because of the
and so now each kid might not be able to be there with us, but we make sure that we go together. That's the most regular thing that happens, because again, that's time that we get to spend together.
True.
And so we just take advantage of every moment that we have right now.
Absolutely. So kind of going back over what maybe the long-term benefits of having a healthy marriage put into place first.
Yeah, so I mean, the stability is huge.
Absolutely.
That it provides for while the kids are in your home. But another one that I'm thinking of is when it's time for your children to move out. We're not to that point yet, but I've actually read several books that talk about like them knowing that you have a good relationship gives them the freedom to go.
Yeah.
And to not be like concerned about you.
Right.
And so I thought that was an interesting perspective that
That's
parents
really
don't often think about.
Man.
Yeah.
Worrying about the, my parents being in their relationship, and wow, that's good actually. I like that.
Yeah, because that would be hard to think. Are they okay? Do they need me there?
So that's giving them a sense of security, like you just said.
Right.
So they are like, let's not be fooled here. They're sprinting out of the house to be on their own.
They're sad. That's what I imagine.
It's okay.
That's what I imagine.
She wants to imagine that they're just boo-hooing over here, but they're excited. So another thing is the positive example that it's going to bring. We talked a little bit about this earlier, but the positive example of their future relationships that they're going to have, or that they're going to experience, and so that really gives them a good understanding of a relationship,
right?
And the give and the take, and the commitment that it takes.
Well, and then when they have their own children, like how do they invest in their relationships so that they have strong marriages too? So I think it's pretty cool to see, like, there are so many short-term benefits, and there are also those long-term benefits that putting your marriage first does provide.
That's good. So there's also with that, like the mental and emotional, like that's kind of in line with all of that. Them seeing that, the structure of it, the example of being able to have security in it, and then for them, they're just like, it helps them mentally be able to process through and not have to worry about it.
Right. So as parents, I think as we're talking, like it should be encouraging to you that there are so many benefits to you putting your marriage first, because it's actually not like you taking away from your kids, it's you providing something for them that they actually really would need.
That's good. So if you want more information on connecting with your spouse, take a look at the 7 Sacred Pathways to Intimacy. The description of that book will be in the link below.